to facilitate conference sessions and personalize land acknowledgement statement. Before we start, I'll first do the land acknowledgement for today's event. I'll probably revise it after this. So we acknowledge that Western University is located on the traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and Attawandaron peoples. Our lands connected with the London Township and Summer Treaties of 1796 and dish with one spoon covenant wampum. This land continues to be home to diverse indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors of our society. Thank you. Okay, so now let's welcome our guest speaker today, Cameron Colley. Is a PhD student in the Critical Policy, Equity, and Leadership Studies program at our faculty. Cameron has rich experience in devising soulful and unique land acknowledgement statements and facilitating conference sessions. They are going to share with us many useful tips for participating in the upcoming conference. Welcome, Cameron.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ajayu. Thank you so much for the introduction. Before I begin, though, I also want to give a huge shout out to Antonia Yip, Mickey Colby, Kate Jin, Katina Pollock, and Ruth Nielsen, as this presentation has evolved over the last few years. And it's really important that I recognize that this presentation wouldn't have been possible without these wonderful people. So thank you so much for contributing to it, and I hope I can put a little bit of a spin on it as well. So this is a photo that I took, I want to say 2 to 3 weeks ago, just outside of here. And what I really appreciated about this was that it was a photo of a winter sunset. And so the way that I describe a winter sunset is that the colors are a little bit more cooler. You have the cooler blues, and oftentimes it's more of the purples and the pinks that are also a little bit cooler. And that's very much so in contrast to the summer sunsets that can be more of a vibrant, bright blue and kind of pinks and oranges and yellows, I would say. And so it was really interesting for me to take this photo and reflect upon this, because I understand land as continuing to evolve, and my relationship to land is also continuing to evolve. And so this realization of the different types of sunsets, I am very, very thankful for land for continuing to teach me about this. And I've been here, I guess I've been alive for 26 years now, and this is the first time that I'm recognizing this. And so it is important for us to recognize that land continues to be alive, and that includes the sky, the stars, the ocean, the plants, the animals, the trees, the grass. Everything is alive, and we are also in connection to everything, because if land were not here, we would not be here. Land absolutely predates humans, and it's very important that in our very busy schedules, and I'm sure as graduate students we understand there is something that relates all of us, that we are all very, very busy. And we're often told to keep our head down, but it's in these moments of keeping our head up and recognizing the difference, let's say, between the two sunsets in different seasons, that we continue to acknowledge and respect land, because land gives so much to us, but what do we give back to land? And specifically the land of the Haudenosaunee, Lenape, Chinungtan, and Anishinaabe nations that we are on, that we benefit on, that we play, that we work, that we learn. And it isn't just about the land, but it's also about the agreements that continue to happen on this land, such as the London Township and Sombre Treaties of 1796, and also the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum. And in these land acknowledgements, it is important to acknowledge it, but even further, in an act of respect to land, it is also important for us to understand what these words mean. And so with the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum, it is an agreement between Haudenosaunee peoples and Anishinaabe peoples, recognizing that there is one dish and there is also one spoon. And to sustain this dish and to sustain this spoon, We need to continue to share. We need to give to the dish. We need to give to the spoon. We need to make sure that everybody in our communities has an opportunity to eat and use the spoon as well. And so this agreement is between these two nations, but it also extends out to other guests who are on this land as well. And so that is one level of understanding what the dish with one spoon covenant wampum is, but also what is wampum? In Marie Lang's book, Urban Indigenous Youth Reframing Two-Spirit, Marie Lang understands that it is not settlers' responsibility to understand Two-Spirit. It is not settlers' responsibilities to understand land. It is settlers' responsibilities to understand that they will never know who Two-Spirit peoples are. They will never know what land is, because that is not our responsibility. I cannot stand up here and say that I am an expert about land, because that is doing land a disservice. I will continue to expand upon my relationship to land, and that is a commitment that I can do. And I can express that respect by understanding that wampum are actually beads made from quahog shells strung together as single strings or in multiple rows to create belts that communicate specific information based on the number, color, and arrangement of the beads. Wampum is used by Haudenosaunee and neighboring nations along the eastern coast of Turtle Island. And so having this deep respect for not only a land acknowledgement, but also the treaties and agreements and the relationships that keep humans, land, animals, everybody together is part of a land acknowledgement that I will be expanding upon later in this presentation. So just a quick overview of the agenda. The first part that I'll be talking about is being a conference moderator and the roles and responsibilities associated with that. I'll also be talking about the roles and responsibilities before the session and during the session. We'll be going into a little breakout about land acknowledgements. And finally, I'll be talking about closing the session after the session is done. So a very broad overview of conference moderation. The first one that I want to indicate is listening. And by listening, I don't mean just listening with your ears. It's listening with your ears and your eyes and your mouth and your entire self, because you may be listening with your ears, but you may not be picking up on the body language that the speakers or the audience is conveying. And so it's important that you continue to be aware of your entire environment when you are moderating a conference session. And part of listening is the idea of inquiring, because after a conference session, there may not be any questions, and it is your responsibility as a moderator to be listening with your entire self during the session in order to create questions during that session to ask at the end of the conference moderator. Because you're the one that is kind of the primary contact, which is going over to the facilitating section of your responsibilities. As the conference moderator, you are the primary contact of that specific space. And so you are the person welcoming them in, you are the person listening during the sessions, facilitating the question sessions afterwards. And so you want to convey to the speakers during your conference session that you are creating a safe space, a calm space, an open and encouraging space. And that goes down to the idea of assuring. This may be somebody's first time engaging in a conference session, and so it may be a little bit stressful, and even if it isn't their first time, it could also be quite stressful as well. I always get quite nervous before conference sessions, and it is really the moderators during the sessions that welcoming me in and say, hey, how's your day going? Are you excited? We're really excited to have you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, because as I said, we are all busy, to engage in this conference session. It is creating that space, that good step right off the bat, that will help put that person a little bit more at ease. And it's that ball that will just keep rolling if you continue to assure them that, you know what, hey, you're gonna be okay, you deserve to be here. So, I have a few questions, one question for you, I guess. If you could raise your hand, what could go wrong in a presentation setting? Yeah.
I guess if the presenter go off time, like, and or maybe say something out of topic, that's maybe not appropriate or anything. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. It is difficult when somebody goes off time because we have a very specific, strict schedule that we want to really adhere to. And also, yeah, going off topic, it's kind of the moderator's job to guide them back to their presentation.
A lot could go wrong, but one of the things that could go wrong is the tech could go wrong. They have stuff that they are presenting, but the projection is not working. Their USB is not working. Yeah, and you could know how to do it, but it couldn't work at that time. So that's one thing that could go wrong. People would not turn up to listen to a session. I've been in a situation like that. Like, I'm the facilitator, there's a presenter, but there's nobody, and they're just like, okay, what do we do?
Right, absolutely. And one of the big things is that technology is our best friend until it's not. But those are absolutely great examples, and it is the job of the moderator to continue to pivot. It's the job of the moderator to keep their composure, and again, going back to those 4 rules, is creating that space that is assuring that, you know what, things can and probably things will go wrong, but we will continue to run this and make sure that we can find pathways forward, and that is the key of a good moderator. So the main thing before the event, before RMSE 2025, moderators will send emails to the presenters, and they will be introducing themselves. Hey, my name is Cameron. You can include your pronouns if you want. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs, and I will be your conference moderator for this session. And you will also ask them about specific details. The first one is about the way in which the presenters pronounce their name, and also the different kind of unique words that may be in your presentation title. And it is important to ask everybody about how to pronounce their name, because you may be familiar with how somebody's name is pronounced, but it may be pronounced a different way. And again, it's the part of the moderator to always continue to respect those presenting in their sessions, because the minute that you say somebody's name wrong, that starts off the presentation, and it may trip a presenter up. And so it's important to confirm these details before the actual session begins. And this also includes the unique words that may be in their presentation title. I've seen many presentation titles that I do not know how to pronounce. And again, it is showing that respect to the presenter and their research to make sure, hey, I'm making this extra step to make sure that we can start off this presentation on an excellent foot. The other thing that you may be asking them about is pronouns as well. And it's very important that you ask if they would like to share their pronouns. And giving them that option if really ensures that you are not forcing somebody to share their pronouns. It is entirely up to them, and they could have multiple different reasons as to why they do not want to share their pronouns, and those absolutely need to be respected. And again, it's one of those things that you don't want to force a presenter to share any more information. It's again, always going back to that respect for the presenter. And so in your email, you could start off, hello, my name is Cameron, my pronouns are they, them, and theirs, and I will be the moderator for your conference session. Before the conference, can you please let me know the pronunciation of your name and of any unique words in your presentation title, if applicable? And if you would like to, you can also share your pronouns with me. The second part of this email is also clarifying who will be presenting at the session. So some submissions that come in may have co-authors, but maybe only one of them is presenting. So it's just kind of clearing them up. So then you're also, as a moderator, not surprised when only one person comes in. The other thing is to invite any questions or concerns about the conference session. Some people may not know if there's going to be technology. Should they bring their presentation on a USB stick or over email, which either is fine. But it's again like inviting those questions to create that comfortable conference space even before the conference even begins. The other thing that I really want to specify is including the BCC function in this, because you will be engaging with multiple speakers, and so it's very important for you to keep the privacy of those speakers, specifically their email, because you do not have their immediate consent to share their email with the other speakers who will be presenting. So to confirm that anonymity, it's important that you use the BCC function when you're doing your introductory email. So each session will look like, the in-person sessions will have 2 moderators, and the online sessions will have 1 moderator. And so in the in-person sessions, each room is equipped with a computer, a presentation screen, a table, and chairs as well. Volunteers will also be floating through the faculty during the conference. If any issues or questions arise, you can always try and find them. And then online, the moderator will be designated as the host of their Zoom session. So they will have the opportunity to let people in, to mute people if they need to. We will definitely be getting to that. And yeah, so these are just some of the basic information about outlining what a session might look like. So there are 2 types of sessions that are going to be moderated. There is the paper session and there's the roundtable session. These are very general guidelines that absolutely may change, and that's why you need to listen with your entire self instead of just following what is on the screen. But very generally, a paper session, you might expect a little bit more structure. So their research may have already been conducted, or it's in the process of being conducted. They may have results, discussion. You might assume that there is a written paper already evolved that has not yet been published. And it might not be published. It is entirely up to the person's decision on what to do with their research. You might assume that the research is further along in the progress, and that means that more detailed questions can be asked. And so in there, they may be presenting their results section, and you may be asking, hey, based on these specific results, what are the implications for X, Y, and Z? In your discussion, you may be thinking, oh, well, in your discussion you said this, how does this connect back to your theoretical framework? And so those very specific details about their research, you could be preparing as the person is talking to start off the question period. In a roundtable section, you may be expecting a little bit less structure, and so for example, last year I presented at a roundtable and presented my introduction, a bit of a literature review, and my methodology. And I got some excellent feedback from the audience on that. And so there's no expectation of a written paper. There might be a written paper, absolutely, and somebody may want a workshop. But assume that the research is proposed or is in progress. And so mine was honestly either. Mine was just kind of an idea that I had, and I got a lot of really, really helpful feedback, which was super good. But the questions about it may be more exploratory. So you may ask, based on your methodology, why are you using this methodology, and can you speak to other methodological considerations that you had in creating this? Or can you speak a little bit more to the literature review in this specific field? And so these questions are kind of encouraging them to consider different ways in which their research can progress, rather than really fine-tuning those specific detailed questions of a paper session. So this slide is about the kind of specific roles of the moderator in opening each session. So this is when this is actually before the people are in the room. So for in-person moderators, try and enter the room at least 10 minutes before, just to make sure that all of the technology is all set up. Or if you're going from session to session, just immediately go to the room after your previous session is done. Confirm that all of the technology is on and it is working, and direct the presenters to sit at the front of the room. This is just to start off, mainly because you want to direct the presenters to open their presentation on the screen before the session actually begins. And you want to make sure that all of the presenters' presentations are minimized on the screen, just so everything is prepared and you don't have to worry about technological troubles during the actual session. Once the presenters have opened up their presentation, honestly, the presenters can sit wherever they want. It's, again, allowing them to choose, allowing them to be fluid throughout the room. And then you also ask the presenters before anyone else is in the room, is that they have the option to select their timing method. And And so we'll be going into the specific time constraints of the conference sessions, but you always want to ask them how they would like to communicate, for you to communicate to them in regarding to having 5 minutes left in the presentation and 1 minute left in the presentation. Because a presenter may want a visual sign, such as 5 or 1. Or a presenter may not actually want to look at you 100%. It might happen. It has definitely happened to me in the past. And they may want you to actually interrupt and say, hey, just a gentle reminder, you have 5 minutes left. Or hey, you have 1 minute left. And so it's, again, connecting with that presenter beforehand to make sure that their choices of how that would be communicated are respected. And then the moderator is responsible for opening up the PowerPoint presentation before each in-person presentation. And so they'll be opening it up on the screen and then giving the keyboard or the clicker over to the presenter. In regards to online moderation, it is pretty similar. So you want to enter the Zoom room at least 10 minutes before the session. And again, since there's only one Zoom room, then that will continue to be fluid throughout the entire conference. You will want to change your Zoom name to moderator -- include your name. Again, if you want to include your pronouns, absolutely. You let presenters into the room 5 minutes before the session, and this is where you let them know that they will have the opportunity to share their screen when presenting, and so you would make them a co-host capability. And so then you would, again, inform presenters that they have the option to select their timing method on how they would like to be communicated, 5 minutes and 1 minute. And then you would let the attendees into the room 1 minute before the session. And also just let the presenters know, just say, hey, I'm gonna start letting people in. Everybody ready? Everybody prepared? Let's go. So very, very briefly, during the session, you are going to welcome everybody to the session. You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to give your own personalized land acknowledgement. You're going to give a gentle agenda, so just how many speakers, the general theme of the session as well, and how much time everybody will get to speak, and also the time of the question period. And then between each presentation, right before, you're going to introduce the presenter. You're going to introduce their name, their affiliation, and their presentation title. And then you just let them get to it. And then between each presentation, you say thank you so much to the person who has just presented. Our next speaker is going to be name, affiliation, presentation title, and then we continue to move on. So, this question I have been thinking about for a very long time, and it continues to change because the land acknowledgement that I gave at the beginning of this session, I will probably give a different land acknowledgement even if I were to do a presentation tomorrow. Because in the time that from now until tomorrow, my relationship with land may change. I may look outside and recognize, hey, you know what, the snow is melting. It's really nice to see grass again. I have forgotten how much I've missed grass. And that is the relationship that I want to continue to have with land. The idea that we continue to teach ourselves. I benefit so much off of land, especially as a Japanese European settler. It is so important for me to continue to engage in that relationship. And so this is a little brief, but it is very important for me to kind of ask you, what does land mean to you? What is your relationship with land? What is your relationship with this land? I'm not from this land. I am from the lands of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, colonially known as North Vancouver. And so I may be reflecting on my relationship with that land as well. I may be reflecting on relationship to land I've gone on to vacation. All of these relationships, again, as we are all in relation with each other, all of these relationships with our land will continue to build. And so in the next, let's say, minute, I'm going to ask all of you to take out your phones and write down, what does land mean to you? 30 more seconds. All right. So what you wrote down in your phone may be what inspires your personalized land acknowledgement during your moderation session. I also invite you to consider this question and maybe write down a few thoughts tomorrow, over the weekend, on the actual day of the session, and continuing to think about this, your relationship to not only the land acknowledgement, but with land will also continue to change, because yes, Western University has their land acknowledgement that they post on their website, and they actually have they also have multiple versions. And I think that is an excellent first step. I think that is information that we need to know, but we also can't just rely on either. We need to continue to give land the respect that it deserves. And to me, I don't think that respecting land means to post a land acknowledgement on a website and then not have it change. And so it's something that I have been thinking about and engaging with Indigenous communities, scholars, people, on their relationships to land acknowledgements. And so it's something that, again, I will always continue to learn. I will never be an expert in land. I will never want to be an expert in land, but I always want to keep that relationship as open as possible and as fluid as possible as it informs my own work. So structuring the presentation specifically for online moderators, before the presentation begins, just give a little outline of Zoom etiquette. And so the main two things that I want to point out is that all mics you need to indicate to the audience that all mics need to be muted until the question period. And if someone ever unmutes themselves as a presenter is talking, just swiftly mute them. As you will be a co-host, you will be able to do that if you click on their specific, icon, and there should be an option for you to mute them. This sometimes happens, and it can be a bit of a distraction if there is background noise or if the person is talking. I never really know how that happens. It's never happened to me, but because it's a very specific thing that you need to click on the unmute button. Maybe there's a key that you have to press. I'm not too sure. I'm always just very curious, how does this happen? I don't know. But anyways, so that is the first thing. The second one is that if you are, conveying to the audience that if a audience member is eating during the presentation, as it may be happening during lunch, each person has a different time to eat, to please keep their camera off. The only kind of caveat to that is if they are sipping a beverage, because it's just it isn't too distracting, but eating is more of a constant action. And so drinks are fine, but if you're eating, please just keep the camera off. In regard to timing, you will always need to set a timer at the beginning of your session. So you can use your phone, you can use your laptop, anything to keep time. It would be incredibly impressive if you can keep time by just looking at that clock. Could not be me. I need an actual timer. But each presenter will have 15 minutes to present, followed by a 5-minute of question and answering. And so for 3 speakers, it's going to be about 50 to 55 minutes of a session. For 4 speakers, it's going to be about 65 to 70 minutes. And so this is also accounting for the transition between sessions. It's also going to be accounting for land acknowledgements as well. So it's good to know that beforehand. And also before the presentation, write down how the speakers would like to be communicated in regard to how much time they have left. You may be talking with them, you may be talking with all 3 of them, and all 3 of them have different methods. And so it's important for you to record that information beforehand. So when the presentation is over and you are fielding questions, you thank the attendees for presenting, and you open up the question period. And you may say something along the lines as, wonderful. I want to thank all the speakers for taking time out of their busy schedules to present at RMSE. I enjoyed hearing about and loved learning about the specific theme. We will begin the question period now, which can be questions for one or more of the presenters, and for you to please raise your hand. In regard to the online moderation, you can also offer your questions in the chat box and say that you will field them. If there are not any questions, and this can absolutely happen, this is actually pretty common. If there are no questions, you always want to prepare 2 questions per presenter, and these questions could be for all of the presenters as well, for you to kind of inspire a little bit of questions, because I'm sure you know that if you have, when you're taking a class, sometimes if the professor asks a question, it takes like a little bit for people to be like, okay, maybe I will actually raise my hand. And it always just kind of takes that one person, because once one person starts, then the ball starts to continue to roll. And so some of the prompts of this could be what brought you to use these methods. For example, I use semi-structured interviews because I really like to engage with the people who I'm hoping to research with. And the idea of semi-structured interviews is because I like to have a semblance of structure when I'm asking these questions, but also continue to leave it open to a little bit of interpretation. So that question, there's always kind of these pre-motivated factors that people really, really like a specific type of research methods. So that's always a good one. What are the implications of future research based on these results? It's always about seeing how we can expand outwards for our research. What audience did you have in mind when creating this research? What challenges did you experience in creating this research? Or how do you plan on further disseminating this research? These are all pretty general questions that could be asked to a specific presenter, because one presenter may have addressed some of these questions, but another might not have. And so it's, again, to kind of keep this list in your head, or actually I would really, really encourage you to write these down either in your phone or on a piece of paper. So you can kind of keep track and make sure that each presenter gets a specific question that is specific to their session, because it's, again, facilitating that respect that you have for the speakers as a moderator. So this might happen. It is unlikely, but it is still important for me to talk about, specifically on Zoom. So Zoom bombing is known as the act of somebody coming into a Zoom room unannounced, and for them to do or say inappropriate things that derails a session. And so this may be quite intense for you as a moderator, but it is also your responsibility to ensure the safety of the speakers, of the audience, but also yourself as well. And so the very general protocol for you to do is, first off, when somebody enters the room unannounced, you note down the name of the person, so the specific username on their Zoom account, and you also jot down some notes about what they looked like. Maybe note the background, maybe note what they're wearing. You remove the offending participant from the group immediately once you have those notes jotted down. You want to make sure that they spend as little time in the Zoom room as possible. And you want to also note down what they did. So maybe note down some of the inappropriate things that they were saying or the inappropriate things that they were doing. And then you want to kind of gather the audience. Once you've done that, those are the main things, because this is the information that you need to send on to security and RMSE. But it's very important that you also make sure that you account for the audience's comfortability. So you let the audience and speakers know about what's happened. You be transparent with them. You say, hey everybody, we just had someone come in and say some horrible things. I'm going to write down some details about what has happened. I apologize for the interruption of the session. If anyone would like to leave the session, please do so, audience and speakers included. And it's important for you to offer the opportunity for people to leave the session, because they may not feel comfortable to continue the session, and that is entirely up to them, and it's for you to facilitate that. They may not know to leave the session, and for you to say that is kind of giving them a little bit of grace. It's giving them a little bit of space. If the Zoom bomber is interrupting a speaker as they're presenting, you may even assure the speaker, hey, you know what, like, we're just gonna take a breath, we're gonna come back, you will have time to finish your presentation, no worries at all. This is a time in which we will allow those concessions of time. If Zoom bombing was in the chat function, make sure to archive the chat. You can do that in the chat settings, and then you instantly reset it because you want to make sure that those inappropriate words do not continue in the chat. Once the session is done, please email security@uwo.ca, and also contact the RMSE email account, RMSE 2025@uwo.ca, with all of the notes that you took. So that includes the name of the person, what they look like, and also what they did. However, there may be more serious versions of this, in which I understand this as an immediate threat to somebody's safety. And so this may be an attack on somebody's life. This may be hate speech. This may be something where somebody's safety is literally jeopardized. And in that case, you shut it down. You shut it down immediately, you end the session, and you email security@uwo.ca and RMSE 2025@uwo.ca, and you wait further instructions. I may jot down the notes about the name of the person, what they look like, and what they did after that, but the first thing you need to do is just shut it down, and you will await further instructions. That's the main thing. And then the other thing that may happen, this one is a little bit more common, I would say, than Zoom bombing, but it may happen, it may not. But this is if a speaker or an audience member is in crisis. And so presenting at a conference is no easy feat. It can be extremely difficult. It may be quite anxiety-inducing. And somebody may have a crisis as they are presenting, or maybe if they are listening to something being presented. And so if you notice somebody having a crisis, again, it goes back to listening with your whole body, because somebody could absolutely be talking, but you could notice them physically shaking, or they could be talking and crying at the same time. And so it's important for you to always pay attention to the atmosphere of the space that you are moderating. And if somebody stops and they're having a crisis, the first thing to do, give them a little bit of space. Allow them to process it a bit. You don't want to instantly go up and bombard them with questions. You just want to give them a little bit of space, and then you gently walk up to them. And I like to use the idea of standing in power with them. And so this is described by not asking for solutions, but instead assuring them that you are here for them and for them to take as much time as they need. Just like Zoom bombing, we don't care about how much time is left in the presentation. We want to make sure that we are there for this person as they are going through a crisis. Because if you go up to somebody in crisis and you're asking them, hey, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want me to ask people to leave? Do you need to leave? Like any of these questions, that is the last thing on the person's mind, and they may not be able to articulate what they want, especially as they are going through crisis, and you may be adding to it. And so you might go up to them and say, hey, I'm here for you. If you want to leave, let me know, and I will come out with you. Something easy like that, it assures that you are here with them, and you are here for only them. In this case, the audience, entirely secondary right now. Once they have de-escalated themselves a little bit, then you might turn to the audience and say, hey, you know what, we're going to take a couple of minutes. The name of the person who is going through crisis, Cameron, please take all the time you need and let me know when and if you would like to continue. The person in crisis may not want to continue, and that is a-okay. They may not want to stay in the room at all. They might want to leave, and again, that is a-okay. It is providing this person with options without forcing them to choose an option, I guess, because if you ask multiple questions, you're kind of asking them to choose an option, which may not be what they want. But to tell them, hey, I'm here, let me know what you need, and I will do that. We're gonna take a couple of minutes. It's again creating that space of, this is a option, but you are in control. You know what? You got this. And so it's really about facilitating that space in which somebody feels supported instead of being asked of. And then finally, in closing the session, after all of the questions are finished, you want to thank the presenters and also the audience members and offer a final round of applause. We love claps. We love claps. And then you also, of course, want to remind the attendees of the next session. And so say that, hey, the next session is going to be taking place in this room. This is going to be the theme. It would be lovely if you could join us. And then also remind the attendees that the community room will be open with snacks if they want to continue some of these conversations further. There may be multiple questions, and we may not have time for all the questions. So you say, hey, you can ask some of these questions over lunch. Connect with your fellow graduate students. It's such a cool opportunity that we continue to be able to do this, and it is so important that we come together in this, because oftentimes academia can feel a bit like a competition, and personally, I do not endorse that. I endorse us helping each other. I endorse us supporting each other. I endorse us coming together, and I often lose sight of that. And that is something I am actively trying to work through and trying to prioritize. And I'm very, very glad that RMSE is here in order for us to come together and come together as a community of people rather than just individuals. But I think that the Jack is that. If y'all have any questions, we will open up for a question period. If you have any questions after the session, you can either email me at tcarley@uwo.ca, or you can email the RMSE email at rmsc2025@uwo.ca. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for this very informative session. And so before we have lunch, I would like to remind that this is the last pre-conference workshop, and the RMSE conference is starting next Thursday on the 13th. We will have Dr. Shelley Taylor present research through the Looking Glass graduate student resilience session. So don't forget to register if you're interested, and thank you for coming and enjoy your lunch. Thank you.